Hi guys, and welcome to a little comparison between the CVJ Freedom, which I've got here on the right hand side, and some other IEMs that are not necessarily the same configuration, but are kind of priced at around the same sort of value to a certain extent. What exactly do I mean by that? Well, I've got here the LETSHUOER CVJ Galileo, which is around $100. It's actually a little bit less now, 1+1. I've got here the TRN MT4 around the same $80 mark, give or take. KIWIEARS Quartet about $109. SEEAUDIO Zeus Rinko, which is about $90 as well, give or take, and you now have a new version which is white. And then of course the Freedom around $70, $75. I've actually got the two colors here, the black and the green. What can I say about the Freedom compared to some of these other IEMs? Well, in my review of the Freedom, I mentioned that it was an IEM which kind of continued the philosophy of tuning that we found in the CVJ May, which is, let's say, kind of a W type of tuning, some nice bass, a nice emphasis there on the mids to upper mids transition, and then a nice emphasis as well on the treble. Kind of, those three areas are the ones that jump out, and then there's the accompanying dips between those two, between those three areas, actually, sorry. Overall, I personally think that Freedom has got a very nice tuning. The areas which can sometimes be problematic, or at least for me, are not problematic, namely the 5K peak and so on. It's not an issue. It's not sibilant, it's not aggressive to my ears. And the fact that it then offers basically two tuning options, and the ones I usually use are the 1+3, so 1 DD plus 3 BAs, or then the 1+4, which is with all the switches up. So basically either I have the switches in the up position like you see there, or then I have the first one off and the second one on. Those are the two positions that I usually have. The difference between the two positions roughly is that obviously with both switches on, with all the BAs activated, there's a brighter sound, there's a cleaner sound. And that brings with it some benefits, and also some stuff which is not as beneficial, let's put it that way. The benefits are that added openness in the sound, that added cleanliness, more detail, more everything, but at the cost of then you getting a little bit of BA timbre, and at the cost as well of there being a certain amount of coloredness to that boost that's given. It's not as natural, in my opinion, as on the setting where I just have 1 and 3 BAs working, so the 0-1 setting. That 0-1 setting brings down that area above, let's say 7 and above. It brings it down in terms of energy, so treble is not as pronounced. That automatically makes the BA timbre almost disappear. And what you lose in terms of detail and so on, is so little that, it's a kind of a question of what you're feeling like, in what mood are you on, all right? For me, like I said, it has never really bothered me that it has that little bit BA timbre, because the overall balance of the sound is a nice one. It's a nice engaging tuning. The fact that CVJ is doing something different to just the normal Harman kind of tune stuff is actually worth being applauded, and I enjoy it. I truly enjoy the Freedom. So I was kind of surprised that I found some people, first of all, not even giving it a chance in terms of what the switches can do. 1, 2, kind of considering it V-shaped, because I didn't find it V-shaped, honestly. But anyway, it's like I always say, my ears are my ears, my taste are my taste, my opinion is my opinion. And everyone else is also entitled to their opinion. So that kind of was the reason why I decided to just give a comparison with some of these IEMs, so that people may get a better perception of what the Freedom is about. Starting here with the Galileo. The Galileo is relaxed. Okay, you could say it's a neutral warm. It's relaxed, and you listen to the Galileo and you compare it with the CVJ, and I'm going to compare it with the 1+3 setting, okay, as that's the one that kind of is more proximal of what the Galileo is about. The first thing that's very evident is the bass. Although they graphically look the same, the bass on the May is significantly more present, more there, so I guess that could be one of the reasons why people consider it to be V-shaped. Like I said, I don't, but I guess that would be a good enough motive to consider it then V-shaped in terms of how it comes across. So it's got a nice full bass. It's not in the quality of the bass of one or the other where you see the difference, is just in the quantity, and there's a lot more bass there. Well, it's also an easier IM to drive than the Galileo, truth be told. The mids are for the most part very comparable. Perhaps there's just a little area there just above 2K where the CVJ kind of has a dip and the Galileo doesn't, and so female vocals can come across just a little bit more open. Also coupled with the fact that the bass is not as present, yes, the mids, yeah, especially on female vocals, can sound a little bit more open, more detailed, but for the most it's very similar. Then in the treble, yes, the treble, yeah, is very correct. It's very well done, very well executed, but it's a little bit tame. It's and by tame I mean it's very chilled out, very relaxed. In the Freedom, there's plenty treble there, be it in the 1+3 or the 1+4 setting, even more so, obviously with the negatives that I've pointed out. But overall, I kind of pen towards the treble of the Freedom being my personal favorite. It's got a little bit more that sparkle that can then keep up with the treble, with the bass, sorry, that the Freedom has. If we had the treble there that we have over here with the bass, it just wouldn't come across as nice, let's put it that way. But overall, yes, there are two totally different design and tuning principles. This is supposed to be chilled out, supposed to be smooth. It's supposed to be more an audiophile reproduction, while that day is, by comparison, way more fun and engaging. But the truth is, they are both very good, and there's no real winner here. It's just a comparison between the CVJ Freedom and something which is very much chilled and relaxed. Okay. Compared to the TRN MT4, there's a lot of similarities here. Basically the same sort of kind of graph of tuning principle. The fact that we don't have the switches here on the MT4 does limit it to a certain extent, and the MT4 as it is tuned, the way it is stock, it kind of is an in-between between the 1+3 and 1+4. It's not as, let's say, by comparison, as dark as what the Freedom is in the 1+3 setup, but it's also not as bright as the 1+4 setup of the Freedom. So it's kind of like an in-between. Overall, I think the Freedom is just a little bit more balanced out. Why? Because the bass is better than the bass on the TRN, on the MT4. I think that's the area there which separates the two, is the bass and how the bass is executed, which I'll probably say is testament to the quality of the bass driver that they're using on the Freedom. So overall, I would say that yes, here you can choose let's say a more concrete, definite winner, and that winner is the Freedom, in my opinion. Okay, it's got tuning switches which allow more versatility. It's got better bass. Overall, it's the better IM compared to the KIWIEARS Quartet. Well, for me, okay, I understand what's the premise of the Quartet. I can understand what's but the Quartet, although it's got this full bass and everything, it's not a quality bass like the bass of the Freedom. When I really compared it with the May, let's say the younger, the old, it's an older sibling because it came out first, but the more simpler 1+2 version of what the philosophy that's being used here in the Freedom is. The May was better than the Quartet already. It was already better. There was no comparison, in my opinion. And I make those words my words for the Freedom. The Freedom is a better overall IM than what the Quartet is. The bass is more well executed. It doesn't have that overly thick bump of the bass, which wouldn't really be an issue if it was a quality bass. The problem with the bass of the Quartet is that it's comparatively, it sounds slow. It just sounds lethargic. I mean, and you take a song like the way you do things, you do from UB40 or Kingston Town, and those are two songs where straight away you can very much pick up on the fact that the Freedom has got a better executed bass. In terms of the mids and the highs, they are kind of very similar. This has also got some tuning switches which allows for some tuning, so on, but overall they're all basically the same thing. The factor here which separates is the bass overpowers a lot of the time those mids and those highs, and so the mids and the highs here, which seem to be of good quality, are not able to shine as much as they could. Oh, just worth mentioning, which I forgot to do in the beginning. This is a 1+1. That's a 1+4. Okay, the MT4 is a 2+2, so a 10 and a 6mm mounted next to each other, and then two BAs. This is a 2+2 as well, two dynamic drivers supposedly mounted in an isoberry configuration, but it's not an isoberry configuration. They are just coaxially mounted, and then two BAs. And the Rinko is a 1+1. And talking now about the Rinko, we kind of have the same situation as we have with the Quartet, which is what? Yes, it's got tons of bass. At least the bass here is of better quality than the bass of the Quartet. It is very noticeable. Yes, it is substantially more bass than what the Freedom has. So, you know, not entirely fair to compare because it was tuned to have tons of bass. This is definitely a V-shaped tuning. But then the mids and the highs, they just don't keep up. Although it's got a microplanar doing the mids and the highs, or mainly the highs actually, it just doesn't keep up with the Freedom in my opinion. Not only in terms of the extension, neither in terms of its overall tonality, timbre. The Rinko is for me an inferior IEM to the Freedom. The Freedom is a better IEM overall. Okay, so you know, like I said, this is more for me to try and help you guys position the Freedom and how it is and how it sounds compared to some IEMs. And you know, just a quick recap compared to the Galileo, this is about smoothness, this is about being fun, but overall, you know, if you're able to volume match them, you'll actually be surprised by how well and how let's say audiophile capable the Freedom is, taking into account that's the main purpose of, or the main reason of being of the Galileo. It's supposed to be a more audiophile reproduction, very neutral, nothing in your face. Compared to the MT4, very similar. The Freedom edges it out in terms of the bass quality and to a certain extent quantity, and how the everything matches each other. The whole frequency range, but it's slightly better. The Freedom is slightly better because the switches do their work and they allow for that improvement. Okay, and we're talking basically the same price as well. Compared to the Quartet, although the mids are kind of similarish, the bass here, in my opinion, is not the most well executed bass. It might be fun and engaging and great fun for some EDM and some rock and some pop, but it's you notice it. You take another song like, for example, let me see here. As I mentioned, Kingston Town from UB40, but you take something like, for example, let me give you a song, Swept Away from Carol Duboc. You listen to Swept Away from Carol Duboc here, and it sounds closed in. It sounds dark. Over there, it sounds on the spot. Rinko, basically the same situation. Yes, it's got great bass. I would even say that yes, the bass is better overall than the bass of the Freedom. Not in quantity, but in not in quality, but in quantity. There's more quantity of that bass, and it is a good quality bass. I'll give it that much. But then the way it matches the mids and the highs is not as well executed as in the Freedom. So overall, the Freedom, for me, for my personal taste, with my music library, which I'll easily and gladly post, it is a better IEM. That's my take on it. Anyway, guys, like I said, just wanted to help position again the Freedom so that there's more options that people can kind of. Maybe you have one of these IEMs, and so now you'll understand better where the Freedom stands. It's a well-tuned IEM in my opinion. It's got a great sound. It's fantastic. It doesn't pretend to be nothing that it isn't. It's very honest in its reproduction. Bass, perfect. It's really a question of more BA timbre, less BA timbre, and how that affects the overall tonality and overall balance. That's basically the gist of it. All right. Anyway, guys, as always, like and subscribe. And any questions you might have, please feel free to ask. Oh, forgot. I'll show you the graphs as well. I'll show you the graphs. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graphs for the Freedom versus the TRN MT4, the Rinko, the Quartet, well, let's get straight into it. This is the graphs for the Freedom in the 1+4 format, the top one, and 1+3 format, the bottom one. Basically everything is, as you can see, is very much on the flattish side. There's no real prominent V's here anywhere. The pin again into the bass is about 8 dBs, into the mids about the same thing. Okay, you could argue that then is enough of a premise to consider it a V-shaped IEM. I I would want to consider it a more of a warm kind of neutral, or then probably a V-shaped IM, at least in the 1+3 format. In the 1+4, okay, fine, I would accept, or can accept it. Most will say that it's a V-shape, but the truth is, the graph doesn't really do justice to what you hear. You don't really notice this dip here, apart from a little bit of a slight tameness in some female vocals, but otherwise it's fine. It sounds really good. There's no bleed into the mids. I mean, it's a good sounding IM. It really is. It really does follow the philosophy begun by the May. Compared to the Rinko, I've normalized it at 1K, and yes, it's noticeable straight away that the Rinko's got way more bass. The bass does bleed into the mids, and that also doesn't help the mids to shine in any way. It is definitely a V-shaped, very V-shaped. We're talking a gain into the bass of 65 to 79 almost, so 13 dBs of gain either way. So this is definitely a V-shape, no question. But there's no comparison in terms of upper mids and treble with the Freedom. The Freedom just has way more, obviously, because the fact that it hasn't got that much monstrous bass, which does help open up this whole area here. So the balance here is way more well established, and also because it just the Rinko just sounds dark. I mean, I never heard this kind of detail there that the graph shows. Never, okay? Let alone the extension past 10K. So that's the Rinko. The next one, which I'm going to show you, is the Galileo. And the Galileo, as you can see, very similar to the bass curve. I mean, up to 2K, you could almost say that they are very similar. And then it's just the way that it handles the rest of the upper mids and the treble that it's different. The bass, although looking the same, it is a more relaxed bass than the bass on the Freedom, and that helps open up even more the upper mids. And yes, there's a little bit more detail, there's a little bit more correctness. Treble wise, it's very tame, very relaxed, very chilled out, So that's why I would say, or I would consider the Galileo and the Freedom perhaps complements to each other rather than one is a winner, one is a loser. Okay, compared to the Quartet, which is this one now. Again, if you look at the mids only, the mids actually are not too bad, and you notice there's detail there. You notice there's a sense of technicalities, But this bump here in the mid bass just spoils everything. I mean, you notice this bleed into the mids quite significantly, and it actually helps shut down this whole mid to upper mid area, as opposed to actually contributing to it. So it sounds overly thick. Besides that, the bass itself is not it's just a very sluggish, slow bass. It's not. It could be like this, but if it was a more quality, more incisive bass, it would sound totally different. Okay, and then finally the TRN. Let me just change the color here of the TRN into something which we can see better. Let's make it green. And the TRN, as you can see, very similar in terms of the bass. I mean, no real difference here. As well, in the way the mids are done, very similar. A little bit more energy here, but you don't really pick up on it too much. They're very similar. Both of them are very similar. Ultimately, it's the bass execution of the Freedom, how it's done, which you don't see it graphically, that for me is the one that's responsible for the Freedom taking the win and making the most sense out of the two IEMs. Anyway, guys, that's it. That's basically what I wanted to show you. Hope this will shed some light and help you better position the Freedom where it stands, where it doesn't stand. And as always, I mean, have a listen if you can before making any purchases. See if you like it, and don't forget one thing, a few things. First of all, tips are a make or break for IEMs. If you don't have the right tips, forget it. I've learned that the hard way many times. Tips are very important. What you listen to is also very important. And ultimately, if it sounds good to you, who cares what I say? If it sounds good to you and if you enjoy it, that's what matters. Enjoy whatever it is that just rocks your boat. If it's a $10 IM, great, fantastic. If it's a $2,000 IM, great, fantastic as well. All right. Anyway, guys, you take care now. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Take care. Bye-bye.